The law offices of Ron Scholes presents Miller on Sports, the only sports show that keeps you glued to your seat. Everything else is just talk. Now, here's your host, Richard Miller.
Oh, it's another beautiful, wonderful day to be alive in the city of Jacksonville, Florida. Welcome on in. This is Miller on Sports right here on Talk Radio 600 WBOB. Always brought to you by the law offices of Ron Scholes, a law firm of military veterans fighting for you. Check them out at youhurtwefight.com. 7 p.m. Our first guest this afternoon, Winston Bennett, former NBA player with the Heat and the Cavs. He played at the University of Kentucky. Him and his wife run Fight for Your Life, a mentoring organization. His book, Fight for Your Life, is out. Find the book at winstonbennett.net. Winston, thanks so much for joining us this afternoon.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely, and you're also the head coach for Mid-Continent University, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. But your book and your life, and people probably heard your name over the last couple years because you are an admitted sex addict. You said you were with about 90 women a month during your NBA career. How did this snowball? How did this occur? Are they just around you all the time in the NBA?
Well, yeah, that is the case, but it also started, very early on as a teenager. In most guys' locker rooms, the talk is about how many numbers you collected, how many girls have you taken out, how many girls have you slept with or potentially could sleep with. That went from high school to that really elevating at the world's greatest university, the University of Kentucky, to going to its epitome in the NBA. So it only kept growing.
So with that, and I've heard numerous players in the NFL, NBA, and Major League Baseball say that they're just women staking out hotel rooms. Was that the case when you played?
Well, it was the case, but again, I want to put responsibility where it belongs, and that's on me, because we all have the power of choice. And sometimes we don't make the best of decisions, at least I didn't, with what is perceived to be power, money, and you in the public eye. Certainly there's a lot of things that's laid out on a silver platter for your taking if you want it. But you also have to make good, sound decisions. And in this line, I did not make good, sound decisions. And, my drug of choice was women.
Now, do you regret your actions from the early 90s during your playing career?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The one thing that I had going for me is I grew up in a two-parent home with a mother and a father, both of which had brought me up in the church. So I knew better than to do what I was doing. So there was no belief of, having sex outside of a marriage or before marriage. And, I did totally, wrong on both points in a major way. But what I found out when I finally started to go to counseling was that I had a real problem. And believe it or not, the real problem was really two problems: a fear of not being good enough and having a very low self-esteem. And you would say, by playing in Kentucky, playing in the NBA, how could you have either one of those? But I did, and I didn't even know it until I started to get counseling.
Very interesting. Now, Winston, do you feel like that's the case with guys like Tiger Woods and all his liaisons that we learned about 2 years ago, and then also Arnold Schwarzenegger and the big deal that was made just a few months back? Do you feel like those are very similar scenarios?
I think they are similar scenarios, but I'm not a clinician, first of all, to give them the moniker of sex addict. And the only way that I started to accept that moniker was the fact that going through all the counseling and seeing that what I was doing was very uncommon versus being common. It's very uncommon to sleep with 3 to 4 women in a day. It's very uncommon to do those things in public places, no matter where, restrooms, anywhere. Mm-hmm. Just because you're feeding the monster. It's a lot like, and it's more easily accepted for a crack addict or a drug addict or an alcoholic. Sex addiction is not something that's readily accepted in our society.
Very interesting. And I want to make light of the situation just a little bit, but Winston, have you thought maybe putting the black book on eBay and seeing how much it can get?
No, I have not, because unlike a lot of people that, go through this, rock stars, athletes, I don't wear this as a medallion, something that I'm proud of. As a matter of fact, it's very grotesque in my eyes that I would be so far out in left field that I would allow it to destroy my NBA career as a coach and could have destroyed my career. Thank God for Mid-Continent University, who has hired me as their coach, and could definitely destroy the most important thing in my life, and that's my wife and family.
We're talking with Winston Bennett, former NBA player. He played with the Mavs, the Cavs and the Heat as well. He runs a program. It's a mentoring organization, Fight for Your Life, in his book, Fight for Your Life. Find it on winstonbennett.net. And Winston, do you look back at those years, let's say 15, 20 years ago, and you say, gosh, who was that guy?
Yeah, I do. But at the same time, I realize that I'm still in a fight. I mean, the fight still rages on. Yes, I've got sobriety under my belt, and, things have really been going well. But I think one of the things you learn when you face any type of addiction, it can jump back into your life at a moment's notice if you don't keep your dukes up. Mm-hmm. People will notice if they'll purchase the book, and they should, whether they have an addiction or not, because this book talks about truly what it takes to be a true success. It's not money, it's not homes, and it's not cars, but it's being a good, productive person. That's the true moniker of success. And in order to do that, you got to keep your dukes up. You got to keep fighting, and you can never, ever give up.
And you talked a little bit about how you were an assistant with the Boston Celtics, your relationship with Rick Pitino, and the same thing with the University of Kentucky. Now you're with Mid-Continent University. Are you trying to work your way back into the NBA, or what is your eventual coaching goal?
I am trying to be the best me that I can be. Right now, I've been afforded the opportunity to play at a Division I NAIA school called Mid-Continent University. And, let's face it, after you've been with the University of Kentucky, the winningest program in college history, after you've been with the Boston Celtics, one of the best, if not the best, NBA franchise in NBA history, you have a tendency to say, God, why am I at the lowest point in my career? And am I supposed to be happy with this? I had to get to a point to where, I was content with where I am. And that's the answer to your question, is being content with where you are. Not satisfied, but being content. If I have to be here the rest of my life, that's fine with me. I'm with great people. I'm mentoring young people, and I'm letting them know my story so they don't fall in the same ditch that I fell in.
And for 1 year back in 1988, you played in Italy. And over the last 24 hours, we've heard Kevin Durant, he's 50-50 on playing overseas. Kobe Bryant has a meeting tomorrow with the Turkish club. If the players were to ask you right now about your experience in Italy, would you recommend them playing overseas?
Absolutely. It was a very positive experience for me. I was able to hone my skills. When I got drafted by the Cleveland Cavaliers, third pick, 64th pick, third round, back in 1989. All the guys were under contract with the Cavaliers, so I had to go overseas. And, again, I looked at that as, okay, this is a slap in the face, man. I want to be playing in the NBA like most young people do.
Right.
But if we have no NBA season, what are you going to do about your skills? You only have your skills for a limited amount of time, and then something called father time takes over, and your skills start to diminish. So you got to utilize it and use it while you have it. And so the next best option is to go overseas and to play in leagues that are very competitive. And let me say this about playing overseas. In most of those overseas leagues, you only play one night a week. You may play on a Sunday. The rest of the week, you'll practice for a couple of hours. But that's a lot less wear and tear on your body than playing 3-4 times, during a week and having to travel an NBA travel. So I think it's a great experience and would be for some of the top guys in the league or any guy in the league that wanted to continue to keep the skills sharp and continue to play while they work out the collective bargaining agreement.
Now, Winston, real quick before we go to break, do you feel like the NBA lockout will be resolved soon? Because both sides meeting on Monday, this is the first meeting, though. Do you feel like it'll go on through half the season or what?
I hope that we're dealing with grown-ups here that understand that, business is about taking care of your customer. And yes, money is the central issue in this, but without customers, without fans in the stands, there's no money to be made on either side of the spectrum. So I hope both the owners and the players understand that and will somehow put some of these, things aside so that, we can serve the customers so that we can have an NBA season. There's a lot of jobs at stake here, not only the players, but you got vendors, you got parking people, you got all sorts of people at stake here.
Oh, absolutely. Winston Bennett, it was a pleasure. Former NBA player, the author of Fight for Your Life. Find the book now, winstonbennett.net, and he runs a mentoring organization, Fight for Your Life, as well. The name of his book, it's at winstonbennett.net. Winston, it was a pleasure, and best of luck at Mid-Continent University going into, what is it now, your 5th season?
Yeah, going into my 5th season, and man, is the time gone already? Man, I was hoping for another hour at least.
I know,
this
Winston.
has been great. I appreciate it.
Oh,
Thank
absolutely.
you.
We'll talk again very soon. Winston Bennett, right here on Miller on Sports. Coming up, it's the Florida News Network. On deck, Veronica Gray. She's a shark attack expert. More of Talk Radio 600, WBOB.